Starting a business can feel like stepping into the unknown. Exciting, but also kind of overwhelming, right? So, whether you're in the early stages or just feeling stuck, having the right mindset and habits can completely change your path. And so today, Sue Loveless, we welcome you, she's kicking off part one of our 30 Days to a Successful Business. This two-part series is designed to help you build momentum, shift your mindset, and create real progress with simple but powerful strategies. You're going to walk away with practical tools, fresh perspective, and a chance to reflect and connect because building a business doesn't have to be lonely and you don't have to do it all at once. So let's get started. Sue Loveless, we welcome as our speaker for today. She is a business coach and consultant. She has 25 years of experience in entrepreneurship, small business development, and coaching. And after building and selling a successful Domino's franchise, she spent nearly 2 decades supporting entrepreneurs as a small business consultant for Norfolk County, the city of Brantford, and the city of Mississauga in Ontario. Now, through Loveless Consulting, Sue helps business owners build confidence, set practical goals, and grow sustainable businesses, drawing on real world experience and a down to earth approach. She is going to take us through a journey today. So, if you want to learn more about Sue, you can check her out on LinkedIn. And there it is. So, welcome, Sue.
Welcome. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so welcome everyone. Today we're actually going to only do 15 days. As I discussed with Laura, it's actually a pretty long presentation when I go over all 30. So my goal today is to show you some simple changes that can make a real difference in improving your chances for success. As mentioned, I have been in business. I was a Domino's franchisee for 24 years. But before that, I started my entrepreneurial journey at the age of 5. I was going door to door collecting pop bottles, taking them to the grocery store for deposit. I had quite a little sideline going there. And then at the age of 10, I started a summer camp in my backyard, charging kids 50 cents a week to come, and I would do art, physical activities. And then I moved on to babysitting because I loved working with children. And I did that for actually quite a few years, paid my way through school, and eventually got into the restaurant business. I really enjoyed it. The only problem was I kept getting into management positions where I was working nights and weekends and not really being paid all that well. So eventually I decided that, well, if I want to be in the restaurant business, I probably should have my own. So I went through the whole system with Domino's, worked for them for 2 years, and had this wonderful opportunity to buy a bankrupt Domino's. But I knew I could turn it around, and I managed to. And I sold the company 12 years ago. So as mentioned by Laura, I have worked in Norfolk County, Brantford, Mississauga. And when I retired in March, I really enjoyed it for a couple of months. And then I just felt something was missing. So that's why I decided it was time to start something. And it's Loveless Consulting. And I don't do couples consulting, by the way. Some people think I do just because of my lovely name. But I love helping businesses in whatever stage, scale, startups. And even I've had someone contact me recently who was looking to sell their business. So those are 3 things that I do currently. So just to give you, I'm going to go through each of the days and give you some tips on what you can do. So day 1, it's all about starting new. We've all woken up on a Monday morning and said, you know what, today's the day I'm going to start this new routine, whatever it is, exercise, diet. But for this presentation, I would ask that you just make success a part of your life and deciding what that is, because I think everyone defines it a little bit differently. So how do you define it? So something you might like to do is ask yourself the following questions. So first of all, how would being successful change your life? Has anything stopped you in the past? What are you afraid will happen if you're successful? Believe it or not, some people are afraid of being successful or maintaining success. What are you willing to do today to make your business a success? And is there anything you would like to develop to improve your chances? And finally, what one action would help you be successful? So Laura is going to be actually sending you a handout at the end of the presentation, and I've actually got some homework, and some of these questions are included so you don't have to write them down. One way too is, I'm going to go back to day one. One way too is to go to the, I don't know if any of you have gone to the BDC website. They have an amazing entrepreneurial assessment tool. And basically what you can do is answer these 50 questions, and it will help you determine what your strengths and weaknesses are as an entrepreneur. So I think this is an excellent way to determine where you may need help. So for example, what areas do you need coaching in? So it's bdc.ca, and if you search entrepreneurial assessment, you will find it. Okay, so day two. So day two is all about giving credit where credit is due. Some people have difficulty accepting compliments or may immediately discount them. This was something that I did in my business. I have no idea why, but so many people, when I started to do well, so I bought the business, and about 6 months later, my sales had increased by about 70, 80%, which at the time I didn't really think was that great because the sales had been so low to begin with. But they started going up, and then I started breaking even, and then eventually I started making profit. And it was amazing the number of franchisees that would call me from all over the world to ask me, what are you doing? Like, your sales have increased. I won these amazing awards. And I sort of discounted those compliments. I should have accepted them and made myself feel good, because honestly, I was working really hard. I was doing a lot of traditional marketing, knocking on doors, networking, volunteering. So all of the things that would get me out there in the community. But one of the things about not being able to accept compliments is it shows that you have low self-esteem. So I think at the time, I just felt that my self-esteem had been low because I'd worked in the restaurant business many years and just didn't feel like I was a success for whatever reason. So another thing too is, one of the things that I found difficult being an entrepreneur, it was kind of lonely. You don't have an actual boss. However, I think your customers are like all your bosses, because if you don't do well, they're going to let you know. And I always tell people, make sure you ask your clients and your customers, how am I doing? You've given them the invoice, they've paid you, make sure that they're happy with the service or product that you've given them. So 4 points to remember: learning to accept compliments. Remember, if you don't believe them, you don't have confidence. Pat yourself on the back every day, or maybe twice. Focus on the action you're taking. Whoops. And get rid of your negative feelings. You have to think positively about your business, and it will build your self-confidence. And acknowledge what you've done up to this point. So maybe you've built your website. Many of us have websites, of course. We've finished renovations on our shop. We've got our office all set up, business registration, insurance. We've joined networking events. We've joined Laura's group, whatever it is. Just acknowledge all the work that you've done to this point. So day 3 is about building confidence. I'm going to talk a lot about confidence throughout the presentation. These are 3 questions you should ask yourself. How do you feel when you're with a confident person? And when I'm confident, I feel confident about what percentage of the time. So I had a group of people that I did this presentation with last week, and they actually came in and they put in their percentages in the chat. And it was actually surprising. A lot of people said, I don't really feel confident, maybe 50% of the time, maybe 60%. And there were actually quite a few that were quite low. So this will tell you that your confidence is lacking. So it's a good thing to ask these questions. And if you don't feel confident when you're with a confident person, that can also show that your confidence is not what it should be. And one way to really build your confidence is to think about 10 confident moments in your life. And how did you feel at the time? So I worked for a Mississauga restaurant. This was right before I franchised with Domino's, and it was called Bailey's Balloon Brigade. And the owner had decided to franchise his concept. So he wanted me to build the sales. He said, Sue, I've got these investors coming in. I want the sales to go up really quickly. So I decided to have an amateur night. I can't tell you how hard I worked on this event. I had all the auditions after work. So I was there at midnight doing auditions. I got volunteers to help me. I got the music studio across the street to help me with the production piece. I contacted record companies to get donations. It was amazing. I mean, I got some really cool prizes. Like $1,000 was first prize. Anyway, I ran this night. They were lined up out the door. I can't tell you how amazing I felt. And the owner, of course, was thrilled. So that was one of my confident moments, but I'm sure you can list a lot of them. Now, there's another thing too about confidence. There's people who are externally confident and there's people that are internally confident. I guess the problem is that some people are only externally confident and inside they're dying. So it's really important that you build your internal and your external confidence. And a lot of people aren't willing to take the steps to do that. So day 4 is all about passion. We've all heard about passion. The only problem is passion doesn't always turn into profit. Lots of people will start a business because they're so passionate about it. But one of the things about passion, and I think that's really important, is that there are many things in life that we have to do that we really don't enjoy doing. So I think one of the best ways to is to think about the things we have to do, even if it's a chore, even if it's something you don't like doing, like cold calling, but make a point of doing things, even if you don't enjoy doing them, but try and get a positive mindset about it. So, for instance, if you're having a really miserable day, it starts out miserable, you're doing things you don't enjoy. How can you possibly expect the rest of the day to feel? To make you feel good, to make you feel passionate. And you certainly aren't going to be interested in helping your customers. And they will probably see it in just your body language and just even the way you speak to them. So one of the ways to find out what you're actually passionate about is to write down 25 things you love doing. If you can't come up with 25, that's fine. It could be 10, it could be 15. Write them down, take a look, and you'll definitely see things and similarities. Day number 5 is what we call using affirmations to inspire you. So defined affirmations are positive statements that, when repeated, can help shift a person's mindset, boost self-esteem, and improve well-being. They also counter what we call negative talk. So, for example, I met with a client and I came into his office and he had post-it notes all over his computer. And they said things like, I believe in myself. I am smart. I create wonderful business opportunities. And I thought, wow, this is great. He says, yeah, I read them every single day. I even have some on my fridge. I have them everywhere. He also had a plant beside his desk. And I said to him, well, what's that? There was this little tiny leaf coming out. He says, oh, I planted that seed the day I registered my business. So he said, as long as I've got this plant, it reminds me that my business is going to grow. And there was actually this other little one beside it. And I said, what's that? He said, oh, yeah, I'm going to be hiring people soon. So I thought that was really cool. So whatever inspires you, your affirmations are for you. So another thing you should do as well, we all understand that we should have goals, but do you write them down? Do you have monthly goals? So I had a whiteout board beside me in the office, and one of the things I would do is I would write down a goal. Well, for me, it was a goal a week, so it was like 4 goals, right? So whatever my goal was, so one of my goals was to do 2 school presentations, because that was one of the things. I'd go to the high schools and talk to the kids about being a female entrepreneur. I was one of the first in Domino's, by the way, in Canada. I was the second. So I was pretty proud of that. And I was invited to many events because I was a woman and I was in business. When I was in business in 1988, when people called and asked to speak to the manager, and I said, speaking, they said, I asked to speak to the manager. And I said, well, actually, this is the owner. So it was really surprising that people didn't believe that, a woman could be an entrepreneur or run a Domino's. So I had also on there a street of the week. So what that was is I would actually go door to door, knock on doors, and I would pick a street. Sometimes there were many streets that were way too long, but pick a street. And I would knock on the door, hand them a gift certificate, tell them I was the new owner. Because when you've taken over a bankrupt pizza store, it has a very bad image, first of all. So that's the nice thing about starting a new business. You have no image, bad or good, but you need to develop that. So as I said, another thing was I wanted to increase my sales. So that was a third goal, but I actually put it a percentage and I'd say, yeah, I want to increase my sales by 10% this month. So again, we've all heard of SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timely. It's really important that they are specific. So if you wanted to increase your client base by 2, for example, Laura wants to get 2 new clients this month. Well, what is she going to do? She's probably going to look at increasing her advertising, maybe have another attend a networking event. Whatever it is, then she has to look at it and say, well, is it reasonable? Is it achievable? I would think so. Is it relevant to her overall objectives of increasing her business and being successful? Of course it is. And she's able to track it as well. So the post-it notes are a constant reminder to keep positive. So try that one on that day. Day 6. Day 6 is one of my favorite days because I actually have a really good example of how this worked for me. So I call it the 3 phases. So there's the no sweat phase, the risk phase, and the nerve-wracking phase. And in my life and in my business, there were all these things that were so nerve-wracking that I really didn't want to do. And I'll give you a perfect example. I joined the Rotary Club. This is a business group that meets once a week. And I figured this would be good for me. I'll go once a week. I'll meet a lot of business owners and they'll give me some tips and I'll be able to network. So the first thing, I think it was the first week, they asked me to do some fundraising. So I was on the fundraising committee. I had to get silent auction items. And I thought, I don't want to do this. Like, this is the nerve-wracking phase, calling up business owners and asking them for money. I don't know if anyone's done this. It's not fun. So I thought, ugh, I don't want to do that. So how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. So instead, I had a plan. So the first thing I would do is list businesses in Brantford that had over 50 employees. So I figured this would be my target. And I would address a written letter. I actually wrote a letter, put it in an envelope, and mailed it to the president of the company. And I also put personal and confidential underneath, and I didn't put a return address. And the reason I did that was because I knew all these large companies, their secretary always opens their mail. So I wanted to make sure I got to the president. So I actually got 7 phone calls back. One of the guys said, I can't believe you did that. He said his secretary came in and said, this is for you. Like, it was probably something bad. I also gave them all gift certificates for pizza. So I was actually promoting my business as well. I actually ended up raising almost $25,000. So it was amazing. So for me, I took something that was nerve-wracking and I made it not so bad by writing a letter, which to me wasn't a big deal, and doing the research. And then when I called them up, it wasn't really a cold call. It was more like a warm call because I'd say, hi, it's Sue Loveless. I'm the one that sent the letter. And they go, oh, yeah, and the gift certificate for the pizzas. So whatever you have to struggle with or whatever your challenges are, try using this kind of 3 phases, and maybe it'll make it easier. So day 7 is, oops, did I skip one? I feel like I might have. No, okay. Day 7, are you making it up or is it true? So one of the things I would hear at so many meetings when I would go to it was the franchise meetings, we had them every quarter. Everybody be complaining. Everybody say, my business sucks. New pizza place opened up, bad. The economy's bad. We're in a recession. The competition is too strong. And the problem was our director of operations would get up and he'd be so frustrated because he'd say, you know what, you guys are just making excuses for doing badly. So as soon as you do that, you're, I think, sabotaging your own business. So if your business isn't doing well or your sales have gone down, do something different. focus on building the business back up and maybe finding another niche market that you never thought of in the past that would help your business. So day 8, another one of my favorite days. So how would you define freedom? What does freedom mean to you? So freedom for me means not setting the alarm in the morning, kind of getting up when I feel like it, and also having the freedom to do what I want. I don't have a schedule. I'm not a 9 to 5. And I think that's what I really loved about being an entrepreneur is I could have that freedom. And then how do you define discipline? Well, discipline is kind of negative. We think of discipline as, stopping us from doing what we want to do and punishing us. So I think what is important to understand on this day is that without discipline, we don't have freedom. So, for example, if you decide you have a project, you tell your client, I'm going to be finished on Friday. And then your wife says, well, actually, I want it, the kids are out of school. How about we do this? And you're like thinking to yourself, oh, well, I'll just leave it. So you leave it because you'd rather spend time with family, which is fine, I suppose, except you have this deadline. So the problem is now you've probably lost that client or at the very least pissed them off. And eventually your freedom as an entrepreneur, because as soon as you lose your clients, you're not going to be making any money. And he may be telling other people how terrible you are. And then all of a sudden you need to get your business back. So what happens then? All of a sudden there needs to be more work. You have to give up all of your freedom and work on your business again. So there needs to be sort of a work-life balance. We've all heard about it. It's very important. I would suggest talking to family in advance if you're planning on starting a business. Most of you have already started a business, but I think they need to understand, especially if you're a home base, that you're not actually accessible all the time, even though you are in your office. One of the things we did, or one of the things I did working from home when COVID happened, was actually had a little sign on my door. It would basically tell my husband that I was busy or I was in a meeting and, he shouldn't be bothering me. So, being at home, a little bit different, but I think this whole concept of freedom and discipline is an important one. Number 9 is called Shine Your Light, and it's all about bragging rights. You've worked really hard to get to where you are. I think we have to remember that. And once again, pat yourself on the back. You deserve it. Think about all of the things that you've completed up till this point. I look at successes, and Laura and I, we work together. She would often keep track of how many people were going to be attending our info sessions, and she'd say, we're up 30%. And I would she was always focused on the more people we get and our outreach. And of course, she was into advertising and marketing. So every time we had more numbers, obviously we were successful. And what are we doing? We're shining our light. We're telling the director, we're telling everybody we know that, yes, this is working. Day 10 is about being fearless. Everyone knows starting a business and being in business can be scary. Being an entrepreneur is about taking risks, and there are no guarantees. I would have people come into IDEA, the office that I used to work at, and ask me, what kind of business can I get into that will not fail? And I go, hold on, let me look at my crystal ball. I have no idea. No business is guaranteed. So you have to be fearless, obviously. So fear is a natural process and it's something that we need to overcome. So you need to embrace risk, learn from your mistakes, and develop what we call a growth mindset. So one of the things in my business, this is another Domino's story, but it was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made. I had a huge order for a school. It was, I don't know, 120 pizzas. And school orders were great because you made a decent amount of money and, you brought in the staff and it made your sales go up and it was great. And I usually had maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 a week. So I'm really excited. I got this 120 pizzas. I actually had to get somebody else to come with me. I couldn't fit them all in my car. I get to the school and the principal happened to be outside and he walks over, he goes, Sue, what are you doing here? I said, well, you ordered 120 pizzas. He goes, no, I didn't. That's tomorrow. So I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? Well, first of all, I wanted to cry. And apparently you're not supposed to cry when you make mistakes. So I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry." I apologized. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do? So I get back in my car. I talked to my coworker. I go, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take this horrible mistake and we're going to make somebody really happy. So I went to the food bank and, food bank was thrilled. It just happened to be a day, thankfully, that people came for food. So everybody's walking away with a pizza. It was wonderful. I did a good thing. I go back to the pizza store, I bring in all the pizza bags and the phone's ringing. And there's another school calling and asking me where their 85 pizzas are. And I'm like, okay, so now I know what happened. We mixed up the two orders. So again, I wanted to cry. Again, no crying. So I thought, oh no. So of course I had all the staff go home. So I had to try and call them all back. So I tell the school, I'm really sorry. Your pizzas will be free. What else am I going to do? Right? So 85 pizzas are free. I just gave away 120. I'm definitely not making any money this month. And they were furious. I even sent flowers to the secretary of the school because, you can imagine what she went through with the kids. So I'm hungry. Where's my pizza? So I made the 85 pizzas. We delivered them and they never ordered from me for like 6 months. And then they called and said, okay, Sue, you've suffered enough. You can have our order back. We don't like pizza. So anyway, I learned from that mistake. And from then on, we always called orders 24 hours in advance and made sure that we had the right order. So, yeah, learning from being fearless and learning from your mistakes. Day 11, regrets. Okay, we all probably have regrets in life. Do you wish you'd started your business sooner? Probably. Do you wish you'd had more education? Do you feel you should be in a better place at your age? I think a lot of people think about these things. But the problem with regrets is they hold you back. They make you less confident, and you really can't do anything about it. So just give them up. My very best friend, she wrote a book, and this was where you got a question a week. It's called Storyworth. You get a question a week and whatever it is, you fill it in. And then after 52 weeks, you have a book. You put in pictures, and I was helping her write it because she's over 80. And one of the question was, do you have any regrets? This was the chapter. And she said, no. I said, that's it? She goes, nope, I have none. And she didn't want to write anything else. And then I said to her, what do you mean you have no regrets? Everybody has regrets. She says, I have no regrets. I have what I have. I love my life and I'm here because of what I've done. And yeah, I have no regrets. So I would like to think of my lovely friend Beverly and how she thinks about no regrets. Day 12, ask for what you want. So believe it or not, it takes courage. And it always drives me crazy that people do quotes for people and wait for the customer to call them back. I mean, if they haven't called you back in a few days, you should be calling them. And if they don't want to do work with you, you need to ask them why. You need to find out why. It's really important because that will help you improve for whatever reason. Um, you can't be shy about doing things. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I ordered 40,000 flyers from my printer, and in the old days, everything was faxed back and forth, and I would approve the print. And I saw all these mistakes. I said, nope, this is no good. And I made all the changes and I signed off and said, go ahead, print the 40,000. So he prints 40,000, they arrive, and they are all the ones that are wrong. He did not make the final edits. So instead of $1 a topping, it was $100 a topping. And instead of green peppers, it was green peppers, like silly mistakes. Anyway, so in the end, I was like, oh, well, I guess I just have to accept these, right? Because I'm starting out, I'm new at this, what do I know? And I thought to myself, you know what? No, I am not taking these. So I called him back and I said, Dan, all these flyers are wrong. I made the edits. You didn't change them. And he says, no problem, Sue. I'll print you 40,000 new ones and they'll be there in a week. So I was like, I was so shocked. But you know what? I sent out the bad flyers anyway. And I had so many customers call me, is it really $100 a topping? Like just silly stuff, right? But they still ordered from me. So I put out 80,000 flyers. I only paid for 40. And of course, I had some great sales. So again, um, be courageous and ask for what you want. If you don't ask for what you want, you're not going to get it. Day 13, the power of words. I'm sure we've all met a negative person, someone who just says, actually, I think you should just remove hate from your vocabulary. It's a horrible word. So negative people, you really don't want to be around them. You want to be around positive people. You want to come to Laura's lovely group every week and get all these positive people to make you feel good about yourself and about your business. So surround yourself with positive people and grow your network, and that will grow your opportunities. And if you are negative, just look at how you speak and turn those things around. And instead of saying, I hate, well, you maybe not like doing things, but just take those words out and turn things into positive affirmations and post them all over your house. Day 14, Liar, Liar. And I'm sure we all maybe saw this movie with Jim Carrey. It was about a lawyer and his young son was fed up with his dad because he was always lying. So I can't remember if he bumped his head or something, or he made a wish that he would not lie anymore. So his dad couldn't lie, and it was just a hilarious story because his dad could not lie, and every time he opened up his mouth, he had to tell the truth. So you have to be careful in business. Like I know we use white lies sometimes. If we say something like, "Hey, it's going to be ready by Friday," but it really isn't going to be ready by Friday. So we're promising things that we cannot do. We want to get the business, so we're doing things or saying things that just aren't true. So we need to be honest with our customers at all times. And if we do that, they will learn to trust us. So it's a nice little exercise. The last time I did this workshop, I had to, make sure that I didn't lie for 24 hours or white lie for 7 days. Most of the time, we maybe lie to be nice to people, but again, make sure you're honest with your customers and they will trust you. And this is the last day. I'm looking at my time. I'm probably a little over time, but day 15 is all about trust. So, how do we get our customers to trust us? I'm asked this a lot when I'm meeting with clients, and I tell them it's not something that happens overnight. Like, even if you've done one job for them, they may not trust you yet. So, for me, I was looking to hire a painter to paint my house, and I was reading reviews online, but I don't always trust them because I've hired people before, and this one guy was getting great reviews, but I think it was all his family because he was the worst painter ever. So I hired this woman, sorry, and asked her to paint one bedroom. And she was kind of surprised because most people, you want to paint the whole house. I said, no, no, I just want you to paint one bedroom. So she paints one bedroom. I come in, I take a look. Amazing. You can paint the whole house now. So I was trying to make sure that I could get a good painter. So you never know what your customer's thinking, even if it's a small job and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't really want to do this. But maybe that small job could lead to much more business. So, building trust with your customers, it's so important. And the best thing about that is once you've developed that trust, your customers will refer you to family and friends. And I think that's what I used to tell my clients. I said, when you've done a job, whatever it is, I had a lot of renovators, hand them 3 cards, tell them you work on referral. They're happy with the job that you did. Please tell your friends and family so I can get more business. So that's day 15 in a nutshell. And I've got some homework. Again, this is something that Laura will send out. But just number one, what changes can you make today that will increase your chances for success? Now, this is not something you can answer quickly. I think it's something you need to think about. Name your 10 confident moments. Once you've done that, read these over. Maybe even read them over when you're going to have a difficult day. Whenever I had to fire anyone, I had this book that I bought, and it was on assertiveness training. And there was this one chapter I would always read before I had to, because it gave me confidence to. Nobody likes firing people, right? So it gave me the confidence to do it. Name 25 things that you love doing. This is a fun exercise. This will help you understand really what you're passionate about. And of course, the last one, maybe the most important one, or what are your 4 or 5 goals that you want to accomplish this month?
Wow, thanks, Sue. So I will make sure that everyone has that link to the homework, and there's a bunch of resources in there too. And if you're watching the recording, I will make sure it is in the comments below.